Access audio from current and past Beyond the Bars broadcasts via the 3CR website. Go to 3cr.org.au/Beyond the Bars and either listen to or download audio from Australia's only live prison broadcast.
Happy NAIDOC!
Slavery is back.
Welcome to a place where private business profit from a captive labour force, yet pennies are spent on medical services to a population in which the Indigenous, the poor and the mentally ill are overrepresented. Where isolation, humiliation and degradation are facts of life. Welcome to prison.
It depends who's telling the story, I suppose. The prisoners would have one view, the people who work in the prison system would have another, and I think it's up to people to decide where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin' Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
And welcome to the Doing Time Show. I'm Peter. We'll be here for the next hour. I'm just going to talk. There's a media release. Breaking forest blockade established on southern slopes of Mount Baw to prevent logging of threatened species. Members of a community group, Forest Conservation Victoria, have established a peaceful blockade at Mount Baw in threatened species habitat where they are currently logging. A person is suspended in a tree sit 25 metres off the ground, preventing logging in high conservation area, value area. So that's just a brief summary. Please contact Friends of the Earth for more information on 1300 852081. Cool. Now we're going to go to this podcast about Keith Matter, about the Presidio 27 mutiny 50 years later. During the Vietnam War era, the Presidio Stockade was a military prison notorious for its poor conditions and overcrowding, with many troops imprisoned for refusing to fight in the Vietnam War. When Richard Bunch, a mentally disturbed prisoner, was shot and killed on October 11th, 1968, Presidio inmates began organising. 3 days later, 27 Stockade prisoners broke information and walked over to a corner of the lawn where they read out a list of grievances about their prison conditions and the larger war effort, and sang "We Shall Overcome." The prisoners were charged and trialled for mutiny, and several got 14 to 16 years confinement. Meanwhile, disillusionment about the Vietnam War continues to grow inside and outside of the military. This was real. We laid it down. The response by the commanding general changed our life, recalls Keith Matter, Presidio mutineer who escaped to Canada before his trial came up. He lived there for 11 years, only to be arrested upon his return to the United States. Matter is currently a member of the San Francisco Bay chapter of Veterans for Peace. So this is recording is from a website called Courage to Resist. So we'll just go to it. right now.
When Nixon got elected in November of '68, I decided to escape. That was it. And I was probably right, because the war went on for 7 more years. You know, kind of like what's happening now, you know. Yeah, just longer and longer wars. So, and that's been a real pain in the ass, trying to heal up from this last thing I experienced, and you keep having these other ones.
This is the Courage to Resist podcast. My name is Eric Klein. Our guest today is Keith Mather, who is working with Courage to Resist to commemorate the 50th year anniversary of the Presidio Mutiny, a historic protest at a military stockade in San Francisco, California, against the Vietnam War.
So there's a language warning.
I have my own way of seeing it. I have my own memories of the spirit in which we did things. And that's what I'm trying to preserve, you know, at least at some, you know, to try to display and preserve. You know, we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know where this was all going to go, but we knew what we were doing. You know, we did. We knew we were going to get deep shit. We just cast it aside, you know, because this was too big. They're killing us, man. Who's next? You know, kind of deal. It was a very trying time. I can't imagine or can't think of any other time in my life where I've ever had the levels of stress that I had prior to going to Canada. And even in exile, there was a fair amount of stress there. Then you look at the underground time I spent in Canada, a couple of years, and then underground here for almost 4 years. So, you know, it's kind of like these experiences have taught me a few things. It's really good to take good care of yourself. Get enough sleep. Because the stresses are just, you know, it's like Marine Corps. I wasn't a Marine, but they got a great slogan that, you know, so something's bad, you know, screwed up, and you got to unfuck it. And I just can't do it to this. I just can't figure it out enough to put it away. So it always comes back. You know, it's kind of like, I don't know if you're right or not, but, you know, start a story and you get stuck. You hit a plateau, or you put it down and forget about it, or whatever. And then it'll bug you. and then you'll know when it's done, or you'll think you do. You know, I mean, it's like when I'm writing, if it doesn't bother me anymore, I think I'm done. You know, that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And you're saying this still bothers you.
Yeah, it still bothers me. And I think things are undone. You know, that's the way it's always felt. You know, whatever that means. You know, it's kind of like trying to right wrongs, you know, or trying to, I guess trying to just really kind of, what I'm trying to do on this 50th, I'm trying to pat all these guys I was with on the back. I'm trying to give them their props. I mean, I've gotten mine already. I don't need it. I really don't. But, you know, the rest of them, and Randy Rowland, he's had a lot of it too. These other guys who were there, they didn't get in the press. They're not in the film. You know, they're there because they were there, you know, but it's like, and I don't even know if they appreciate it that much. I think they will, but I mean, some of these guys went pulled jail in other places, you know. So it's not all just a bunch of anti-war guys. These were working class guys that had, you know, issues. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
So as well as the guards were the same, you know, same socioeconomically and educationally. I was brought into the stockade after a demonstration. 9 GIs banded together in a church in San Francisco, took sanctuary, held a press conference, resigned from the military, and eventually were transferred to Marin County, to another church because we had a bomb scare at the Presbyterian Church on Oak Street in San Francisco. We got to Marin City, went into that church. We were there for the overall, from the time our press conference took place to the time we were picked up by the respective military, police, and sheriff's departments. It took them 3 days. We weren't hiding, that's for sure. So it was pretty interesting. It was called the 9 for Peace, and we were all arrested. And some got released quickly, some had court-martials, and went on to do time in Leavenworth. And as for me, one of the 9, I was not offered a pretrial agreement, as the others were, because I was the local hometown boy. I was a San Francisco boy. And I think that may have been the reason. And so I was in jail, not knowing what was coming. And in October, there was, early in October, they were taking us all out on work details except for a few of us that were maximum security. And this gentleman, Richard Bunch, came in. He was a 19-year-old kid, we all were, who was, I think, a little fried. His brain was a little fried from either drugs or paranoia from being AWOL and drugs, and who knows. Anyway, he was not mentally fit, and he had medication and everything like that from the hospital and stuff, but the guards messed with him and wouldn't give it to him and stuff like, it's just, things like that do go on. And eventually he went out on a work detail with several other soldier prisoners, and decided he was going to just walk away from the work detail, and he was kind of like not using his head. Anyway, he got shot and killed, shot in the back. As he was walking away from a work detail, maybe 30 paces away. And so he died on the spot, and the guys that were left behind there in that work detail were screamed at, told to get on the ground, and they were scared to death. This guy just shot one of them. And then they brought them all back to the stockade, and they spilled their guts to us who were inside. And reverberation went through the jail that day. And, there was a small riot. We broke some windows and pulled some wiring out of the walls that connected to speakers. And, we plugged all the locks with paper and wet paper. And, we just messed. We just were pissed. We decide to do something. We say, well, what are we going to do? Randy Rowland had just come in from a demonstration on the 12th. At the gates, they were AWOL soldiers demonstrating against the war, walking right up to the gate and then turning themselves in and then coming right into the stockade. And he was an anti-war guy, a little more sophisticated, had at that point, and had come in with information from the movement, the left, and with a few names of lawyers and this and that and the other thing. We were already getting lawyers for people, by getting their name and getting the lawyer's name and mixed, because how do you get one otherwise? And so along with him and the fact that everybody else was furious and afraid and didn't want to work anymore at all. So we devised a plan that what we would do is we would go out and get information in the morning for roll call, fall back into chow. Everybody gets to go to chow, use the bathrooms, whatever you got to do, get ready to fall out for work detail. And then when we fall out for work detail, we get information. The first name to be called was a signal for everybody to break ranks and go over to the grass and sit down. We had a list of grievances that Walter Pulowski stood up after the officers came up around us and everything, and to read to them, and read our demands. And we wanted an investigation. We wanted on the murder we felt, and we still feel, Richard Bunch, and also the psychological competence of the guards at all, are they trained? Where are they trained to do this job? And also we wanted to have, the same kind of thing, psychological evaluations for all the prisoners too, this was like, ahead of our time kind of a thing, because we didn't know what else to do. And we wanted a reduction in solitary confinement time. We wanted to eliminate the rabbit chow that they'd feed us if we were disciplinary. They just give you a slice of bread, a glass of water, and a quarter head of iceberg lettuce, and say goodnight. And so things like that. We had five big ones. The war was number one, and then Richard. We got that out, and then they started to read to us the Mutiny Act out of the UCMJ, and so we started singing, so we could not hear them, and or at least that was what we're trying to do. And we sang. The first one we sang was "America the Beautiful," interestingly enough, and then we sang, since that we didn't know the fucking words, we sang "We Shall Overcome." Pretty simple. You can just keep saying that, and you got it, And so, and we sang that, and we continued to sing that off and on throughout the period of time we were out there. The fire department was called up by the captain, and he wanted them to come up, and they came up, and he said, "I want you to hose those guys down and blast them out of there." So, they said, "They're civilians." We're going, "No, we're not doing that." And he marches back in, and he calls up the whole platoon of MPs. There's a whole platoon of MPs outside the fence now, looking at us, and with full, helmets, clubs, no guns, and they're going to come in, and we know they're going to come in, and we're not moving. We're not going to just jump up, and we're sitting down here for a reason, and we figured too that press might get there, because we put the word out we were going to do it, when, what time it was going to be. We tried to get it out. They never showed up, but our lawyer did shortly. A lawyer did shortly after that. We were all picked up, carried in, if we didn't walk, and strip searched. And I was thrown into solitary confinement immediately, as was Walter, because I was the first one to break ranks and move. And I don't know who else was. I think most of the rest of them were still put in the general population, and then put their clothes back, and everybody was trying to just go, what do we do now? And Terrence Hallinan was our attorney. He was a young attorney at the time in San Francisco, and he took all of us as his defendants, the defendants, took our case, and along with others, there were 4 or 5 others, Howard DeNike, and we had military lawyers, as I pointed out earlier, Brendan Sullivan being one of them. I think we had about 5 or 6 attorneys at the table during most of what was going on in Article 32 board and the trial. I also, when I first got there, and I'm kind of going to backtrack because it's an isolated thing, okay? When I first got in to the stockade, I jumped over this. First got into the stockade, I figured, well, if I'm going to work, right, that I'm helping the war effort. Really, if I do anything at all for the military, I'm perpetuating what they're doing, and so I'm going to do non-cooperation. That's what was my goal was when I went in. And when I got in and they started messing with me, I just went upstairs and I stood on the deck upstairs and took off my uniform. And I got a sergeant came over to me and screamed at me and told me to put it back on, and he gave me a lawful order. And I said, no. And they called over an officer, gave me direct order, put my uniform back on. I said, sir, no, sir, I'm not doing it. And put me in solitary confinement.
Yeah. What kind of work were they having you do?
Splitting firewood, mowing the general's lawn, busy work down at the hospital, laundry, just, dumb stuff. Nothing creative. And so, but it wasn't safe, because of the shotgun guards. So anyway, I spent a lot of time in solitary confinement, and I decided to put my uniform back on, based on the fact I wanted to try to escape, and it was kind of hard to do otherwise. And plus, they wouldn't try me. I could never go to trial on my refusing a direct order or AWOL until I put my uniform back on. They wouldn't try me. So all those things said, that took me into my uniform, and then all this came down. Okay?
Yeah.
All the,
and then
Richard's death and everything else came down.
In the back.
Yeah. Right. And so there we were. Guys are looking at a long time, and got, in their trial a long time. I didn't go to trial. Myself and Walter Pulowski, the man who read our grievances and was my partner, and when we left the stockade and went to Canada, we escaped on Christmas Eve, 1968, and we're in Vancouver New Year's Day.
Can I ask you how you escaped, Keith?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We were both working as, kind of carpenters. We were doing, paneling inside the captain's office. We're replacing a door, doing some work in the, wherever they needed it. But we just took it on because it was like, who doesn't, when you're in jail, doesn't want to carry around a hacksaw and wire cutters and a hammer?
Yeah.
Sorry, but we got to walk around with these tools all the time, and we got to hide things. We got to make holes and stuff, and hide stuff, and, and get into supply offices and steal stuff. And, so we were moving, trying to get ready to go.
Yeah.
And the word was out that anybody who could escape should. Of the 27, absolutely, just to take something away from them, because we knew they were going to screw us good. We knew that, but we still had to do something. We couldn't let Richard's death just go by, and that was a pivotal point in a lot of people's lives. And so, where we were then, or where I was then, was the idea of escaping, and slowly got, the best good opportunity is what we had to take. We couldn't really plan too tightly anything, because we tried to get a car waiting for us if we did get out on the days we were trying to try, through visits and things like that. We'd pass that information. And the day we did get out the gate, they let us out to go put the tools away. Christmas Eve, nobody was around. And because we had these hacksaws and stuff, it was really easy to say, hey, look, they don't want us keeping them inside. We got to take them out. And the guy goes, oh, yeah, right. And he let us out and let us go into the shed. And I said, hey, I got to build a little shelf to keep this up out of the water, because it was rainy. And we went out the window and had hats and underneath our shirts, because you can't, give you caps. You have to have like a hard hat, like the helmet liner. And so we put those on, lost our boots real quickly. And so we looked right and jogged toward the golf course, and in step, just like we're drilling, and climbed over a proverbial 13-foot wall, whatever tall it was, and caught a cab to a safe house. We were provided a ride to Canada. We got this ride from a Franciscan priest who, Joe Sontag, who drove us north in a vehicle that was loaned to us by a high school principal and her husband, who was a San Francisco police officer. Gave us a car, an old red Rambler station wagon, and we went to Priest River, Idaho, where we picked up Joe's sister, and then we all drove up together. We figured that would be a good enough smoke screen, and we got across the border into Grand Forks, BC, and then took a bus to Vancouver and got there, New Year's Day. Yippee! where we were. So, in about 4 inches of snow. And here we are. Got a hotel room and kind of hung out, looking around for what's next. The Canadian experience, I met a woman, a French Canadian woman, who became my wife and the mother of my 2 children, and we divorced, after about 9 years. But I had custody of the children, or I took custody of the children, and brought them to California during that period of time, and I was underground because I needed help with my children. I didn't see a way for me to be able to do it by myself.
What year was this?
It was 1980. And so I was, not really hiding. I was just, back home, and many years after the war, nobody was thinking about that. And, and although I had a lot of friends who knew the deal, and stayed with my parents for a year and a half. And then a girlfriend and I rented a place over in the coast in Half Moon Bay. We moved over there. And lived there for, my kids were in school, everything's got fine. And I dropped my driver's license in a gas station, paying for it with a credit card. And they picked it up and handed it off to the next sheriff guy that came through. And the sheriff guy sent it over to San Bruno, to the town I was living in, and my old hometown. And they gave me a call and said, "Hey, why don't you come get your driver's license?" I don't know, shit. The jig is up, so to speak. And I told my mother, I said, "Look, I think I just got to go and do this. I don't think I can evade this anymore. I got 2 kids in there. I'm 38 years old. I just got to get this done, and
it had been 22.
So
it had been 21 years, 22 years since you'd escaped from the army jail.
Yeah. And I'd like to get this done, And so I went down there. They arrested me and called the army, and the army came to get me, and they took me to the Presidio, where I spent a night not in the stockade, but it was closed in, but it was a jail. Their little holding cell, so I spent the night there. And then 2 guys, I was in handcuffs the next morning. They fed me, put me in a van, and drove me to Fort Ord.
And when you were at the Presidio again, 1980 is such a vastly different time in my mind from 1968. Did it feel different? Because the guards are a new generation of guards. The people who are working with you as a new generation of people, or was it the same?
I could have been their father. Some of these guys were so young. I could have been their dad, even at under 40.
Yeah.
That's the way I felt. And actually, among the prisoners and among the people that I contacted after that, very few of them were my age. They were almost all younger. When I got to Fort Ord, and they put me inside, not the stockade, but just a barracks. I'm like, shit, this is okay, I guess. So I spent some time there until my 201 file came in. Once they saw my 201 file and realized what the fuck I had done, they put me in solitary confinement up in the stockade, even though I had weekend passes, had gone home at Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. The Army. Anyway, and solitary confinement, and I had 18 months to do. Oh, shit. And so, and that was after the appeal, so, I had gone through years before. So, my lawyer was all over it. They pulled me out of Fort Ord after I fell down the stairs, and woke up in the hospital a couple of days later.
What do you mean?
With my wife.
Why did you put air quotes around fell?
Well, because I'm sure I got pushed down the stairs.
Yeah.
I'm sure I did. But, I fell down the stairs. Never looks good for them when they say that. Anyway,
and
so
you have no memory of the incident. Is that what you're saying?
No. I have memory of carrying a mattress and waking up in the hospital.
Yeah.
So they were converting the the stockade from Army to all services, West Coast Disciplinary Barracks. So they were building bunks and bringing in mattresses, and I was on that detail. So anyway, and so I woke up, fortunately, and my wife was near me, and I looked over across the room, and there were two armed MPs sitting in my room.
In the hospital.
And I just couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just shows you how skewed it was. And even then, and because there was so much bad press, because I had been in the hospital and all this had gone on, the commanding general of the post said, "Get him out of here." Right? And they shipped me to Fort Riley, Kansas within days, and ordered to put on a Class A uniform. Well, coming out of solitary confinement. Okay, put your uniform on. Direct order to put your uniform on, and walk me right out. Put me in a car with a guard on either side of me. Drive me to the airport. Put me on a plane with a guard on either side of me, and the stewardess made him take the handcuffs off. It's like, what a fucking Jesus! I'm just a nonviolent prisoner. It's like.
Yeah.
Peace activist. Right?
Anyway,
it's really most dangerous thing you can do.
It's really interesting to me too, because it really, it's like a whole new. In my mind, it would seem like it's a whole new army dealing with, like, the previous generation's rebellion, right? Like, the Vietnam War experience sort of changed. To my understanding, changed the military a lot. I mean, for one thing, the draft was abolished, and so. But now you're being punished by this, like, new version of the post-Vietnam military for what you did during the Vietnam War. It seems very it's like an anachronism to me. How did it feel to you? And were there supporters at that time for you in the 80s, or what? Because the 70s were gone, so who was around to care about what was going on for you?
Well, I was fortunate to have a lot of the people that I was connected with back in the 60s. I was still in contact with to a certain degree, and I know I had their support. I know I had my family's support. I had an excellent attorney, and I had people that were going to Washington D.C. knocking on doors trying to get me out. And connecting with the Secretary of the Army and whoever they needed to lobby for me. They went to one of the Kennedy's offices to try to get him to lobby, and so forth and so on. So we were working on it. And in the meantime, I was doing time. I was in Fort Riley Stockade for a while, and that was no fun. And eventually I was made a carpenter again. And was I barely remember this period of time, and I was fixing stuff again for the Army, putting a hinge on it, something, building a riser to set buckets on so it didn't have to bend over so far, whatever. And I was working one day, and one of the staff, the guards, came over and said, "Hey, look, you got to go and see the captain. You got to see the captain. He's got a message. He wants to talk to you." So anyway, I went in, and he said, "Hey, listen, I have a letter here. Your sentence has been remitted." I got a call right then from my attorney too, telling me that my sentence had been remitted, and I was to be released within 72 hours. And that was that. I got to go up to my cell and grab my shit and tell everybody, I'm fucking out of here. And they, and then I got applause, So, and because, it was like, they knew what I was going through. Everybody inside knew. I'd been there for a long time. I'd cried my eyes out in solitary confinement more than once when I first got there. I mean, holy shit, And so, they got their ounce of flesh, I think, it felt that way at the time anyway. So, and I was released May 10th, 1985, 17 years and 2 months after I was drafted. I got a dishonorable discharge, a $20 bill, and a suit of clothes. and a plane ticket home where I was drafted. And that's that. That ended my relationship with the United States military. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, I've been bruised and battered, there's no doubt about it. At the same time, I saw people go through worse. I saw people, you know, not come home from Vietnam. I saw a lot of people really, really get screwed up. And I just came back from Vietnam and seeing the people there that got screwed up. You know, so I don't feel so bad. I really don't. You know, I feel like I'm maybe one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Keith, tell me about, you know, we're coming up on the 50-year anniversary of the Presidio Mutiny sit down. So what do you want people to know, for one thing, who weren't alive in 1968 about what's being recognized now 5 decades later?
It's interesting to watch these 50-year anniversaries, you know, come up. It put me through my changes. Okay. While in Vietnam, I was at the 50th anniversary of the My Lai massacre, and with Veterans for Peace, and astounding. Just, you know, can't. I mean, I don't know how to explain it even. To tell you the truth, very moving. I met a survivor of My Lai. So, you know, I'm just saying.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that. So you've traveled very recently to Vietnam to the village. What is there now?
In March. It's a temple in the village of my son My Lai. Okay, there's 2 villages right next to each other, and they built a temple, a memorial temple there, and they also have a museum there of the event of the massacre. Also, large photos of Hugh Thompson and his history. He flew in and landed in between the Americans who were killing the Vietnamese men, women, and children, old men, women, and children, landed in between them and pulled a dozen of the Vietnamese out and trained his 50 or 30 caliber machine gun on the guys who were shooting, and told his gunner, if they start shooting, you start shooting. You know, this guy's a real hero. In Vietnam, hero. Here, not too many people know about him. There's a movie out, anyway, Whistleblower of My Lai, anyway. So that was very educational, and being there with so many Vietnamese, okay, and so few white people walking around, it's like I dressed in an onsai, traditional male Vietnamese outfit, dress like, you know, and along with a few others, just to, you know, be respectful. And, you know, we burned incense and did our thing, and then did long walks around the symbolic grave sites of 3-year-olds and 8-year-olds. You know, it was very, very real. And then also there's so many people in Vietnam, just like there are here, that are young. They don't remember the war at all. In 1975, there were 28 million people in Vietnam. Now there's 98 million people. So there's about 50, 60 million people at least do know nothing about the war, unless they're... But yet almost every family in Vietnam was affected by that war. So it's like, it's vastly interesting to be among them, to tell you the truth. Really, really, really interesting. Captivating.
Is that the first 50th anniversary event that you've had the occasion to attend?
Yeah, I guess so. You know, not too many other ones that I know of. I didn't go to the Catsonville 9 one, and I didn't know really even the year that the Fort Hood 3 did their thing, but it was 66.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's already 50 years. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, the 9 for Peace Well, it happened 50 years ago in July. There's no time to do anything for them, really. So we'll join it into the other one. That's all we can do. And I don't even know, maybe I know where one of those guys is. But I do know where 5 of the 27 are. So that's, we're in contact and they're coming. So that's going to be interesting. I've seen a few of these guys often. I'm like, say, every couple of years or so. And the other guys, not so much. Maybe every, one guy I haven't seen in 50 years.
Yeah.
And another guy I haven't seen in 10. So all this is going on and building up to this. I'm telling you how I got here to this, and not even approached this point. But it's like, once I got out of the military, once I got out, I mean, my kids' teachers sent, everybody in the class signed a card, saying welcome home, and things like that for me. And they knew I was a resistor, and they knew, so there was some warmth and good stuff around it, some healing, at the same time I got death threats.
I asked Keith Mather to tell me about how he was approaching the work that he's doing with Courage to Resist to commemorate the 50-year anniversary of the Presidio sit-down strike.
The reason the Presidio Stockade is a historical building is because of the mutiny. That's the most significant thing that ever happened there.
But at this time, there is no official recognition on the site of the mutiny, nor of the murder of Richard Bunch.
It shouldn't be skated over. I think there should be a kind of almost a whole wall that's, about Richard. I don't know if anybody else died there, but since he died there, he's somewhat significant, person, in history. And without being morbid. But the thing is that look at all the other lives that he shook up. I mean, he maybe, but the effects of what happened to him shook up and changed. I mean, lots and lots of people, parents, brothers and sisters, wives, children. Some guys lost their kids over this, to their wives and stuff. So a lot of people got affected by this. And that's the fallout of anything like this, I think, and so with respect to all that, it's an ongoing thing. I think that maybe the damage is done, but the healing takes a lifetime because you got to go through all these steps. Some guys haven't been back to the stockade. I don't know how it's going to be for them. I have no idea, I got a general idea, but how do I know? I'd ride by there on my bike, 3 times a week. I mean, it's become less than, I've tried to diminish it in my life, and now I'm involved in lifting it up in a different way.
So the Presidio Mutiny took place on October 14th, 1968. And we're speaking with Keith Mather today on the Courage to Resist podcast because we're coming up on the 50-year anniversary of that event. To learn more, you can go to the website couragetoresist.org. My thanks to Jeff Patterson, to Keith Mather. Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to this podcast anywhere where you get your podcasts, or you can listen to past episodes right there at the Courage to Resist website. Again, that's couragetoresist.org.
Help 3CR support the rights of Indigenous Australians.
They mean to save our culture and save our dreams, our footprints, dreams, our songline, and keep our culture going strong.
Of course, a lot of the Aboriginals, having been stolen, were put into state care, and also others
recognition of what our people have been through in the last 200 years, the recognition of our culture in the last 40,000 years, and the recognition of where we are heading into the future.
Welcome to Survival Day, Invasion Day. 223 years ago, the white man landed on our shores.
Subscribe to 3CR and help help keep Indigenous voices on air. Call us on 94198377 or visit 3cr.org.au. Subscribe now.
Hello and welcome to the Doing Time Show. I'm Peter. We're on your dial 855 AM on your radio or 3cr.org.au. You can go on the internet. I'm just going to play another podcast from Mumia Abdul Jamal. Last Thursday there was a big court case, and people were going to flood the court case and to ask to free Mumia. So we'll just go straight to that now.
If the corporate media's job is to sell fear, conflict, and ignorance, yours is to show courage amidst adversity, cooperation, community, complexity, and the sheer genius and brilliance that exists in all of humanity. People have to be able to see and sense a better way forward.
So there's been a lot of talk about political prisoners lately.
Have you thought about looking into any of the political prisoners locked up in Philly, like Mumia Abdul Jamal?
Yeah, Mumia, I got in court. I got out the next week. I was looking at the news. He got in court. And it was just the light. Like, Mumia was the only light shed on Pennsylvania judicial system in a long time.
After nearly 45 years in prison, Bell, who was serving a sentence of 25 years to life, was just granted parole.
That stood up for liberation, scared of self-defense and people's self-determination. Terrified witnesses, forced cooperation, 30 long years.
Like thousands of others in America, my family and I are political prisoners trapped by our illegal system. We committed no crime, yet we received life sentences with no possibility of parole or reprieve. And we survive in a state of constant darkness, not unlike that experience in solitary confinement.
I'm not sure that is correct. That was Maureen Faulkner, the widow of Daniel Faulkner, that Philly police officer who was killed on the job. Mumia Abdul Jamal was convicted of this crime, but many believe him to be innocent. So what is a political prisoner?
A political prisoner is a person who is imprisoned because that person's actions or beliefs are contrary to those of his or her government. In some cases, political prisoners are targeted by the state unjustly.
In other cases, political prisoners are imprisoned for engaging in, quote, illegal actions that they believe will advance their cause.
To sum up, a political prisoner is one who is imprisoned because their political beliefs or actions are a threat to the status quo.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
In 1979, Mumia won Columbia University's prestigious Major Armstrong Award for its radio editorial of the Pope's visit to Philadelphia.
In 1981, Philly magazine identified him as one of 81 people to watch.
That same year, Mumia was sentenced to death.
Keep in mind, Mumia became a target of the police and the FBI when he joined the Black Panther Party at the age of 14.
Mumia's FBI file contains a photo of him with the word dead written on the back.
The FBI couldn't kill him, so the Philly DA and police framed him.
But now, a landmark Supreme Court ruling could overturn Mumia's conviction.
In Williams versus Pennsylvania, the High Court ruled that Ronald Castile, the judge who denied Terrence Williams' appeal, had a conflict of interest.
It's a conflict of interest because it's a violation of the Constitution for a judge to rule on a case in which he previously worked on as a prosecutor.
The same conflict of interest violation in the Williams case surfaces in Mumia's case and involves the same judge. Ronald Castile was a prosecutor in Mumia's case and later a judge on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. He reviewed and denied Mumia's appeal.
So, as you can see, Mumia's case is now back in court, and the prosecutor is arguing that Judge Castile was not biased and that he didn't have any direct involvement in Mumia's case when he was prosecutor in Philadelphia. Let me give you some background information. Ronald Castile is a DA turned politician. He was elected judge of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court on a tough on crime platforms. And as we know, in Philadelphia, Mumia's case has been used by politicians to manipulate fear of supposed cop killers to win elections. Case in point, I read a letter that Castile sent to then Senator Bob Casey, and this is what it said, and I quote,
I urge you to send a clear and dramatic message to all police killers that the death penalty actually means something.
Now, given that Mumia has been demonized as Philadelphia's top cold-blooded cop killer, who do you think is number one on the list? And in a new dramatic development, Judge Castile told this to the Intelligencer about Mumia's case.
As DA, I didn't have anything to do with it until it went up on appeal. None of them ever asked me to recuse myself on appeal when I was a justice. To me, it was just another case.
So, if Mumia would have asked you to recuse yourself from this case, you would have? Well, I got some news for you, buddy. I'm looking at a legal document here, and Mumia and his attorneys are asking you to recuse yourself from this case.
So it gets put up to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And at that point, one of the new members of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court was a guy named Ronald Castile. Who was Ronald Castile? He was a former DA in Philadelphia. So Castile votes to reject the appeal, but then he issues a separate opinion saying why I'm not going to recuse myself. He says the defense is blaming me and saying I can't be fair because the FOP made me man of the year and they gave me money to campaign on and they gave me campaign support, and so they're questioning my ability to be impartial because of FOP support. Well, there's 4 other members on the court that received money from the FOP, and he named their names. So now we have 5 members of a 7-member court who have taken money from the FOP, which is the prime organization trying to get Abu Jamal executed.
Let us become that which we revere and remember. Let us be abolitionists, strengthened by the positive contribution.
It will take collective action to win.
Please call, email, or fax the DA's office with this message.
Time to
bring Mumia home.
You can lock me down, I will never be your prisoner. Victims are the ones that just obey and just give it up. Even in this world, we enslaved like some prisoners. Our freedom fighter fights till the world listen up. Yep.
Let us become that which we revere and remember. Let us be abolitionists, strengthened by the positive contribution of our ancestors, black and white. Let us struggle to make progress. Let us build the movement by making it blacker, more Latino, and more working class. Let us understand that social movements change history.
So for more info on Mumia and the court case, go to prisonradio.org. We'll update you about the court case, everyone and me. We'll just go to announcement now.
The Indigenous Social Justice Association Melbourne is continuing its Stop Failing Our Kids campaign until this year's Victorian state election. We're asking people to sign an online petition and to send postcards to Premier Daniel Andrews, calling for his government to abandon plans to build a $288 million youth prison at Cherry Creek. We want that money directed to culturally appropriate programs to address the underpinning issues rather than incarcerating children. For more information and to sign the petition, visit ISJA Melbourne's Facebook page. Postcards are available at 3CR and locations listed at isjamelbourne.com. Premier, it's time your government stopped failing the kids. ISJA Melbourne is a 3CR supporter.